Welcome everybody, my name is Robius and today I have a special episode to share with you all. First, however, I want to quickly apologize for the lack of uploads last week. That was due to midterms taking place and unfortunately I had no spare time to create any content. However, we should be fine returning to our standard content production. Anyways, as you may have noticed by the title of this video, I've introduced a new element to this series. And so, without further delay, let's start this episode of Assassin's Creed: The Real History, the series where we now compare the representations of characters, groups, events, and locations depicted within one of the Assassin's Creed games to their actual history. Please be warned of major story spoilers ahead. For today's episode, we will be analyzing the history of the Hashashin, better known these days as the Assassins. To begin this episode, we'll be covering the pre-game history, which will inform us on their origins prior to the beginning of the first AC game, then their in-game history, which we see depicted throughout the game's story, and lastly we'll analyze the differences between the events depicted in the game to the real historical events. Starting with the pre-game history, little historical information exists concerning the Assassins' origins. However, it is believed that their creation may be traced back to the first Grand Master of the Order, Hassan-i-Sabbah. Just prior to the First Crusade, Hassan, who was a very popular figure in the Shia Nizari Ismaili society, which represented a Shia branch of Islam, used his connections and fame to found the Order of Assassins from all those who followed him. With his new followers devoutly behind him, Hassan searched for a place to settle his order. It was eventually decided that they would use the fortress of Alamut as their base. Once established, the fortress was turned into a very defendable area, while Sabbah's followers were indoctrinated in the beliefs of his new order. Sabbah soon locked himself within the fortress, never to leave again, as he wrote more religious works and doctrines for his order, while his agents spread his influence over the nearby towns and districts. Somehow, Hassan managed to forge his followers into a secret society of deadly assassins, broken into different levels, starting with himself as Grand Master, the Great Propagandists, the Rafiqs, and the Lasiqs. The Lasiqs were also known as the Fedai, or self-sacrificing agents, and were the ones trained to be some of the world's most feared assassins. To this day, it remains unconfirmed how Hassan managed to create such an unquestionably devout order. One explanation, which was offered by a few sources, claimed that the Grand Master would train his followers from a young age in the art of combat, making them into perfect killing machines. Then, while still youthful, at one point he would drug them with hashish and bring them to a beautiful place with women and all the pleasures of the world, telling them that it was paradise. They would then be drugged again and return to their standard lives, being told that the only way they would return to heaven was if they were fully committed to him and willing to do whatever he said. This theory was further pushed by other sources, who claimed that the name Hashashin came from the Arabic term meaning users of hashish. However, none of this was confirmed and many still dispute this as an explanation. With these devout warriors at his disposal, Sabbah ordered various assassinations, including politicians and generals who opposed him. His disciples were very well trained in combat and religion. In addition, it has been noted that most of the Fedayeen, who were the actual assassins, were considered to be expendable pawns, since they were not expected to survive the assassination, which according to the previously explained theory would have been fine with them since they were going to paradise. However, they were usually physically fit and possessed great stamina due to their training, in addition to being patient, cold, and calculating. Most of these soldiers were generally well educated and intelligent, since some of their missions had them studying their targets and disguising themselves to stalk and eventually kill their mark. Depending on the context of the mission, the assassin's kills may have either been prolonged and stealthy or quick and extremely public. It was all decided based on what kind of message Hassan was hoping to send to his enemies. It would have been closer to this time, following the eventual death of Hassan-i-Sabbah, that we were initially introduced to the assassins in the first AC game. Although the game surrounds its story around the actions of the assassins working out of Masyaf, the Order actually held multiple fortresses governed by different leaders, with Alamut and Lamassar as a few examples. The mentor depicted in this game was Rashid ad-Din Sinan, or the Old Man of the Mountain as he was also known. However, his character truly represented a mixture of both him and Hassan-i-Sabbah. By the time of the Third Crusade, the assassins had already been operating for around a century, and either the name of their order or their religious faction, the Ismailis, were well known across the Middle East, as despite the escalating conflict between the Saracens and the Crusaders, most of the assassinations were usually credited to the Assassin Order. A few of their more notable actions were either based in killing or intimidation. The Seljuk vizier Nizam al-Mulk was publicly stabbed by one Hashashin, while years later Conrad of Montferrat, who was to become the new king of Jerusalem, was assassinated in the street by two assassins, simply to name a few of their many successful kills. In contrast, it is said that both the Seljuk Sultan Muhammad Tapar and the Saracen Sultan Salah ad-Din were intimidated by the order. When Tapar became the new sultan and refused the assassin's offer of peace, he woke up with a dagger stabbed next to his head, and soon after an alliance was brokered. Sources claim that during a siege against the assassins, Salah ad-Din experienced a similar case, except he was in his tent surrounded by his army and guards when he awoke and saw a poisoned dagger and scones made by the assassins next to his bed, leading to yet another alliance. Therefore, following many years of success in building themselves a powerful reputation, the assassins finally met their match after facing the Mongol Empire. It is believed that certain assassins were sent to kill Mungge Khan, and in response the Mongol commander Kitbuka attacked the assassin strongholds. Hulagu Khan made his advance in the area in 1256, where he captured the assassins' fortress of Alamut. Although they briefly reconquered it in 1275, the Mongols defeated them again, and their political power was lost. Meanwhile, the Syrian branch of the order was conquered by the new Egyptian Mamluk Sultan Baybars in 1273. Although he allowed the order to still exist, they were forced to serve his empire. Soon after, the Order of Assassins ceased to exist, although certain historians believe that individual members of the order may have worked independently, accepting private contracts up until the 14th or maybe even early 15th century. However, this cannot be fully confirmed. It has been claimed that the surviving members of the order or their ancestors may have been given the surname Hajali, which came from the word Hajal, which was a rare type of bird in the mountains of Syria that was used as the symbol of the assassin order. In summary, there were quite a few differences between the actual Order of Assassins and their representation in the Assassin's Creed series. Firstly, as explained, the most liberal accounts claim that the order may have survived up until the 14th or even early 15th century, but more conservative sources believe it collapsed soon after the 1270s. Therefore, the only real representation of the order would have been in the first Assassin's Creed game. Secondly, although there may have been conflicts with a few Templar figures and the Assassins, there was never a lifelong rivalry spanning centuries, as is shown in the game. Instead, the Assassins were essentially an independent faction which faced off against most others present in the Middle East. Thirdly, although the elements of the Assassin's Creed were usually used by the Order, such as not killing the innocent, hiding within the crowd, and not compromising the Order, there has never been a fully documented discovery of any such creed. Fourthly, although in the game the Assassins, much like the Templars, show themselves as a more philosophical order rather than a religious order, most historical sources indicate that the religion was an extremely important element within their organization and may have potentially been one of their sources of inspiration for their zealous actions. However, once again, this cannot be fully confirmed. Fifthly, although the actual assassins were extremely fit, trained in combat, and possessed great endurance, when they were sent to kill their target, they were expected to die. Essentially, many historical sources refer to them as an equivalent to an early type of suicide agent, since whenever a public execution was made, they usually did not try to escape, and instead allowed themselves to either be instantly killed by some of the guards, or captured, tortured, and then killed. Although there may have been a few cases of assassins surviving more stealth-based missions, most knew that they were going to die after succeeding, which gave strength to the potential theory claiming that they were going to paradise after they fulfilled their mentor's command. However, I cannot stress that once again, this was not a confirmed fact. Sixthly, the hidden blade is also an element of fiction, as most assassins simply used a dagger or a poison blade to carry out their kills. Seventhly, although the leap of faith was clearly an element of fiction, it found its origins in a partially recorded case where, as a show of power against a rival with a superior force, the assassin mentor had a disciple climb to the top of a tower and jump off to his death, simply to prove that his control over his men was absolute and they did not fear death. Eighthly, and I hope that this one was obvious, there was no such thing as eagle vision. And although I'm certain that there are more differences I may have missed, these are the big ones I wanted to discuss. Overall, despite the Order being heavily fictionalized in the game, without which the AC story would not exist, it is great to see all the points where Ubisoft's writers found their inspiration. To name a few examples, we could refer to the combination of Hassan Isabah and Rashid Adin Sinan's stories that truly gave the players a larger understanding of the Assassin Order, as was discussed in a previous video. And the use of real historical figures and assassination methods that mirrored certain historical events definitely added to the atmosphere of the game. And with that final fact, we have finished this special episode of Assassin's Creed: The Real History. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you did, I highly recommend you try one of the Assassin's Creed games. Please, feel free to leave me a comment of what you think about these wider types of episodes, and if it's something you'd like to see me continue. Thank you all for watching. Please leave any suggestions for future characters, groups, or factions, events, or locations from any of the Assassin's Creed games that you'd like me to cover in the comment section below. Please rate, comment, and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you all in a future historical episode.
Through Abbas, I learned many things from the apple, of life and death, of the past and the future.